What's growing on, gardeners? It's Saturday, September 30th, and it is a beautiful fall afternoon here on the southeastern coast of North Carolina. Are you new to gardening but you don't know where to begin? Well, today's video is for you because I'm going to share with you 3 fruit trees that are perfect for the beginner gardener with a small yard.
If you're new to the channel, please subscribe and hit the bell to receive new video notifications, and check out our Amazon store and spread shop links in the video description for everything I use in my garden and awesome custom designed apparel and other gear. Your support is greatly appreciated.
I've selected the fruit trees in this video for 3 primary reasons. 1, they have very few issues with pests and diseases. 2, they fit in small spaces so you can keep them to a very small footprint if you have a small yard. And 3, these are almost impossible to find in grocery stores, so the only way to eat these fruits is to grow them yourself. Fruit tree number 1 is the tree that got me started with growing fruits in the very beginning, and that is the fig tree. Fig trees are some of the most diverse, versatile, and widely adapted fruits in the world. Only with figs can I grow 10 different unique varieties of figs and have none of them taste anything alike. Yet despite how versatile and how diverse they are, I bet many of you have never even tried a fresh fig before. That's because figs are not true fruits. They are a syconium. They are a collection of hundreds of inverted flowers. So when you pick a fig, they begin immediately wilting, similar to a flower. They can't ripen off the tree. In August and September, where you sometimes see figs in specialty grocery stores, they aren't ripe. They were probably picked anywhere from 3 to 7 days before they're ripe. So the taste is absolutely terrible. They have to pick them hard so they don't get damaged in shipment, and then they will never ripen off the tree. So what you're getting is something that doesn't taste anything like a real fig. Truly ripe figs have an interior consistency like Jell-O, and they fill up with this wonderful honey-like syrup that is so sweet and delicious. And no matter what your personal tastes are, there is a fig that will suit you. There are figs that taste like honey, like brown sugar, peaches, all different types of berries, caramel, molasses. The world is your oyster, basically, when it comes to growing figs. However, the one thing that is true across all figs is that the only way you will be able to get truly perfectly ripe figs is to grow them yourself. If you're a beginner gardener, fig trees are great to grow because of how easy they are to grow. They have very few pests, very few diseases. All of the common figs that are sold throughout the United States don't require pollination to grow, so you just simply set them in the ground and they will do the work for you for the most part, as long as you give them basic fertilizer, compost, and soil amendments. The other great thing about them is they fruit very quickly. Many fig trees will fruit the very next season. Almost all of them will fruit on year 2. So when you plant them in the ground, expect to have a harvest very soon. Fig trees can be grown in ground all the way down to zone 6. However, they tend to take significant amounts of cold damage if you live in a zone colder than zone 8. So it's not uncommon for a fig tree to die back to the ground in zone 7 and zone 6 every winter. However, this isn't a big deal because fig trees respond very well to hard pruning. In fact, the more you tend to cut figs back, the more fruit they tend to give you the next season. So if you live in a colder zone and you still want to grow fig trees in ground, what you can do is you can just build a cage around the fig tree, sort of like I do with this banana plant right here, and then cut the fig trees down to about 2 to 3 feet tall in the fall after they get defoliated by the first few light frosts, and then just stuff the cage full of wheat straw, and that will insulate them, and then you just pull the straw away in April or May whenever your hard freezes stop, and then the tree will have maintained its trunk and it will bud out for you. And you can see here, even in zone 8, sometimes unprotected fig trees can still get damaged. That's what happened to this fig tree right here. It got bit by a particularly cold winter that we had last year. And you can see how small this fig tree is, despite the fact it's almost 3 years old. So because they respond so well to that hard pruning, that's why they're good for a smaller backyard. While an unpruned, unmanaged fig tree can get pretty large, because they respond so well to hard pruning, you can keep them pretty small. Fig trees do not have to be large to pump out a lot of food. These fig trees are all 5 years old, and as you can see, I keep them managed to a very small size, and that does not stop them from fruiting heavily. There are plenty of figs on all of these trees. Even if you don't have a backyard at all, you can still grow fig trees. That's because they perform incredibly well in containers. In fact, they fruit profusely in containers. So if you don't have any land and all you have is a balcony on an apartment, you can still grow fig trees. They will perform very well in large to medium-sized pots and fruit for you early and often. This second fruit tree that is perfect for the beginner gardener is the persimmon tree. Persimmons are some of the easiest fruit trees that you will ever grow. They have almost no pests and almost no disease. And one of the reasons why that is the case is because there are species of persimmons that are actually native to the United States. There are three main types of persimmons. There are Asian persimmons and American persimmons, and there are recently developed cultivars where scientists have successfully crossed Asian and American persimmons to form hybrid persimmons that have some of the characteristics of both types. The fruit that you see right here is an Asian persimmon called Giambo. Most varieties of Asian persimmons are hardy down to zone 7, with a couple of the most cold tolerant hardy down to zone 6. Now the wonderful thing about Asian persimmons is they are smaller stature trees. This Giambo persimmon is one of the largest varieties of Asian persimmons, and if you leave it unmanaged, it will only ever get to be about 20 feet tall. I can easily keep this tree at 10 to 12 feet forever through annual pruning. Another wonderful benefit about Asian persimmons is they are almost all self-fertile, so you only need one tree. That means if you have a small backyard, one single tree can give you an incredible amount of fruit in a small footprint. This Asian persimmon tree is called Ichikikajiro, and it is probably the most cold tolerant of all of the Asian persimmons. It is cold tolerant down to zone 6, so people with chillier winters can still grow this variety. And what's really cool about it is a non-astringent persimmon, meaning that you can eat it when it is still unripe and hard like an apple. With your astringent varieties, you have to wait until they're fully ripe and soft like a bag of jello before you can eat them. This is also a naturally dwarfing tree. This variety will only grow to be about 8 to 10 feet tall left unmanaged. So that means you can keep it even shorter with annual pruning. American persimmons, on the other hand, are hardy all the way down to zone 4. Sometimes they're even hardy down to zone 3. American persimmons are more of a wild type of fruit. Their fruit is very small, only about an inch in diameter. They're like really large acorns, and you have to wait until they turn completely soft before you eat them. In fact, they will fall from the tree when they're ripe. That's how you know that they're okay to eat. Now, American persimmon trees can get very large. They can grow up to 80 feet tall, especially if you buy a seedling, and most of them require cross-pollination, so you need 2 unique trees. For that reason, they're generally not a good fit for people with smaller backyards. However, there are some newer cultivars out there that claim to be self-fertile and are smaller in stature, especially if you start pruning them from a very early age. So if you live in zone 3 or zone 4 and you'd really like to grow a persimmon, you can consider American varieties. I just recommend that you get grafted trees that are well known to be smaller in stature and self-fertile. But one of the most exciting developments in recent horticulture is that scientists have successfully crossed Asian and American persimmons to make hybrid persimmons. They have the fruit size and the smaller stature of the Asian persimmon with the cold tolerance of the American persimmon. So if you live in a colder climate, you can have the best of both worlds. They're hardy down to zone 5. I recommend you check out the varieties Nikita's Gift and Rosianka. I actually planted a Nikita's Gift tree in my brother's backyard in zone 6, New Jersey, and it is thriving and it produced fruit its very next season. So if persimmons sound exciting to you, you simply must get a persimmon tree. Because they are fully ripe when they're soft like a bag of jello, you just can't ship these things. So the only way to get a truly ripe persimmon is to grow it yourself. And when I say that these things are delicious, I mean that is the understatement of the year. They have a consistency like jello, and they taste like honey and spice and cinnamon. They are just incredible, and they will ripen for you in most climates in October and November. Even if you live in a cold climate, they actually ripen best after a few frosts and hard freezes. So they're a great way to extend your harvest deep into the fall, maybe even early winter. And if persimmon trees sound interesting to you, I'll make sure to drop a link down in the video description for a complete guide I put together a couple years ago on growing persimmons. It will teach you everything there is to know. And the third fruit tree that beginner gardeners simply must grow is the Feijoa tree, also known as the pineapple guava tree. This has been, simply put, the easiest tree that I have ever grown in my entire life. This is as close to zero maintenance as it gets. Feijoa is native to subtropical regions of South America, and when they are fully mature and established, they are hardy down to zone 7, so they're quite cold tolerant for a subtropical species. However, one thing you must know is there are self-fertile varieties of of Feijoa, and there are varieties that require cross-pollination. So it's very important that if you have a small yard and you only want to grow one tree, that you make sure that you buy a verified named variety known to be self-fertile. Otherwise, you will need 2 trees. And it's also worth noting that many sellers sell inexpensive seedlings of Feijoa. If you're buying seedlings, you have to assume that they require cross-pollination and they are not self-fertile. The fruit of the Feijoa are usually born in clusters, and they're fairly small, especially a variety like this, because this is an unnamed variety. It just happens to be a self-fertile seedling. Named varieties tend to have much larger fruit overall. They're selected because of their optimum fruit size. For example, this Feijoa variety is called Takaka. It was recently imported from New Zealand to the United States. It is known to be self-fertile and is famous for its incredibly large fruit size, relatively speaking. Feijoa grow naturally like a big shrub, and for that reason they are popularly grown in New Zealand as hedges. And also for that reason they are great to plant along a foundation since they don't have very large roots. Feijoa fruit fall to the ground when they're ripe, and it looks like I have my very first ripe Feijoa of the season, so this is a perfect time to explain to you this incredibly unique taste. The fruit of the Feijoa is quite possibly the most unique tasting fruit I've ever had in my entire life. If I had to describe it, it tastes like a mix of citrus and pineapple, which is probably why they call it pineapple guava, even though it is not a guava, it's its own unique tree. The way I've described the taste of this fruit in the past is nature's Sour Patch Kid or nature's sweet tart, because that's kind of what it tastes like. If you've ever had the candy Sour Patch Kids, it really tastes like that. Now I'm going to bite into this. It has been almost a year since I've had this fruit, and it is so refreshing to finally get to taste it again. You are never, ever, ever going to find this fruit in stores. The only way that you are going to taste this incredibly unique, rare fruit is to grow it yourself. And that right there are 3 fruit trees that are perfect for any beginner gardener to start growing. Now, I thought about this video long and hard, and I didn't want to give you fruits like apples or peaches or pears and things that you can just go to the grocery store and get. Now, while it is true that anything you grow in the backyard is going to be legions above anything you get in the grocery store in terms of taste, I wanted you to begin your journey with things that you simply can't get anywhere else. These amazing fruits that many people do not know about that are actually easier to grow than what you get in the grocery stores, because a lot of the common fruits like your apples and pears and peaches have a lot of pests and disease issues, and it's a good thing to get your feet wet on easier trees that don't really suffer from those problems before you get into these more advanced species and cultivars that may require more maintenance and upkeep. So that being said, I really hope that you found this video helpful and inspiring, and that you go out and purchase your first few fruit trees and get them in the ground as soon as possible. It's now becoming time that we order our fruit trees for the next season, because a lot of times these fruit trees are shipped out in the spring. So get in line now so you can get an early spot and get the varieties that you enjoy the most. So everybody, I sure hope you found this video helpful and informative. If you did, please make sure to hit that like button, subscribe to this channel, and please ring that notification bell so you're notified when I release more videos like this in the future. What I'm going to do this fall and winter is I'm going to dedicate a lot of my content to newer gardeners who are looking to start their very first vegetable garden or start planting their very first fruit trees to get some amazing edible landscaping or food forest going and become a little bit more self-sufficient. So keep your eyes peeled throughout the new growing season for more content like that. If you're curious about any of the products that I use in my garden in real life, I have them all linked down below in my Amazon storefront link in the video description. So if you expand that video description and click on the Amazon link, you'll see everything I use in real life. And while you're there, check out my spread shop for custom merch if you want to support the channel. Thank you all so much for watching, and I hope to see all of you again on the next video. We are finally out taking a walk now that it's cooling off for the evening, and Dale has been waiting for these sniffs all day. That looks like a really good one over there, buddy. I saw his nose dripping all kinds of nose juice. That's how excited he is. Funny thing about that, the reason why dogs' noses drip is because water and liquids in general have much higher molecular density than air. So therefore, smells transmit better through them. So their nose gets all wet and juicy so they can smell better. Isn't that amazing? It's the same reason why sound travels faster through solids than it does liquids, and faster through liquids than it does gas. Cool science.